Hello there. This is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. We are on the headquarters of the Columbia River System at Invermere, BC. This is the Canadian Rockies, and it is in the heart of the finest mountain scenery anywhere in the world. We went to the annual Spring Bird and Wetlands celebration on the Columbia River. We are in southeastern British Columbia, and we paddled the Columbia River for one day between Invermere and another community called Radium Hot Springs, just in this little area right here. Now, the Columbia River, the headwaters of the Columbia River is just south of Invermere, Columbia Lake, and the water flows north and makes a big U-turn, and then flows back south, eventually into the U.S. and out to the Pacific Ocean at the border between Washington and Oregon. But getting back here to the headwaters area of the Columbia River that flows north, like I said, in the adjacent valley, another river, the Kootenay River, flows south. They almost come together at a place called Canal Flats. But the Kootenay River water flows south directly into the U.S. and makes a similar U-turn as the Columbia did further north. The Kootenay River makes the U-turn and then makes a left-hand turn and joins the Columbia River, and both rivers flow as the Columbia River south. The Columbia River wetlands is one of the main flyways of the migrations of birds in North America. Each spring they hold their wetlands and birding festival called Wings Over the Rockies. You can go in the river. There are guided paddles. There are guided and narrated hikes. And there's bird watching tours, various talks on wildlife in the wetlands. A well-known guest speaker or two is part of the festival, and there is entertainment at night. The singing group the year we were there was called Over the Moon, and they were a top-class Western-style kind of music.
That's how it feels, 'cause I'm over the moon. The other day we went camping, just good friends for the night. While we had that bonfire burning under stars and moonlight.
Many of their songs were Western, but they were by no means limited to Western music alone.
I've been down to Texas, got myself a bag, got myself a big man, and help him off the way.
Headwaters of the Columbia River at Invermere was the center for the early fur trade. This statue on Main Street is of David Thompson, who explored the Columbia River 2,000 kilometers to its mouth, along with his wife, Charlotte, a Cree woman, and their three oldest children. North America's greatest surveyor, astronomer, and geographer, Thompson, traveled nearly 90,000 kilometers in total, as he accurately mapped much of North America. Thompson and Charlotte had 13 children in total, were married 58 years, and are buried in Montreal. This guy put the Columbia River on the map. We are going for an all-day paddle downstream through the wetlands of the Columbia River. Come along, she'll be a good paddle.
Everybody signed the Columbia River paddle waiver.
Okay, we are ready. The guides were extremely knowledgeable. Here is a guide telling about some swirling disease that was limited to Europe until 2016 when it was discovered in North American waters. The disease has not been transferable to humans, and it is not harmful to eating the fish. However, there is no known cure, and fish stocks are being depleted.
And their tail and back end goes black, and they swim in a circle. Their tail kind of goes sideways, so they can no longer effectively swim, and then they die. And the scary part about whirling disease is its transferability and its ability for the it can be in anything. When we see it in the parks, what they've done is they've shut lakes down completely to any kind of use.
We paddled under the bridge between the highway and downtown Invermere. This is a Ramsar site, which means an organization of 172 countries around the globe have defined this wetland as one of international significance. Everyone had their sunscreen, sunglasses, a hat, life jacket, in addition to water and food for nourishment. The wetland is not as much a dense forest area, as much as it's more of a grassland, shrubs and bushes. This was some historical sites in the early days of navigation up and down the river. It was beautiful paddling. We paddled by this beaver house, but like the wetlands around the world, much is now gone. 70% of Canada's wetlands no longer exist, mainly due to agriculture, plowing up fields and draining wetlands to plant crops. The other great destruction of wetlands has been urbanization, with pavement, city buildings, and residential housing. Even the thousands of dams built across rivers have destroyed wetlands upstream. Wetlands is a food supply, so you will see big mammals like bear and wolf. Grass eaters are nearby too, like moose and elk. And a female elk getting out of camera range. There's also deer and animals like bighorn sheep. There's a nice little herd near Invermere for the tourists to see. But the wetlands are really all about the smaller kinds of life, like insects, turtles, frogs, all kinds of amphibians and reptiles. Songbirds are in the wetlands, and the wetlands are all about water fowl. The common ducks, and these are mergansers, the bad hairdo birds. And here's a merganser looking for food with its head in the water. Canada geese are always around. Long-legged wading birds like this heron are the greatest predators in the wetland. Because there is a considerable fluctuation in water levels in a wetland over a season, the habitats of these birds fluctuate a great deal. They do not stay in the same place. They go where the appropriate level of water is at, where they can wade and with their long beaks snap food from out of the water. As we paddled along, the guides talked and gave us more information.
But there is a rookery. That's what you call a colony of herons is a rookery. And you'll see them in their huge nests. And these guys will go after those sizable eggs. Great blue herons, although they kind of look big, they don't stand a chance against a bird like a bald eagle.
Mama and her baby. A telephoto lens does have its place. I'm not sure if this is a bald eagle, an immature one, doesn't have his white head yet, or if this is one of the larger golden eagles. I think it's a golden eagle, but you have to be familiar with these birds to really tell them apart. The railway follows the river, and when they didn't join the two rivers together historically, it was because Canadian Pacific Railway said, you join the two rivers and it'll increase the height of the water and flood out the rail bed. And that was the end of that idea. Birds migrate through the wetland like this tundra swan. The brown head is not a natural color. but it is stained from searching the bottoms of shallow waters in their search for food. The Canadian loons more often are seen on lakes, but this wetland is large enough to have some. They are a solitary bird and very territorial, and will drive off their own kind off the lake, and you usually see only one or two of them at a time. It was a beauty of a day to be in the river. As we paddled north, to the east is the Rockies Range. To the west is the Purcell Range, and the water flowing into the river from the Purcell Range was noticeably colder than from the Rockies Range. In fact, the cooler and most water flowed in from the Purcells. Rivers and lakes are governed by federal laws rather than by provincial laws. In the main channel here, there is a low speed limit. There's a requirement for a low horsepower motor on boats, and there is no towing water skiers. Common sense and responsibility says follow these 5 or 6 guidelines. Number 1, avoid fuel spills. Number 2, make no water wake that destroys nests along the shore. Number 3, only run the clean and inspected watercraft. Number 4, stay in the open water in the breeding season and when young birds are still with their parents. Number 5, take your garbage back home. Pack out what you pack in. And number 6, if you have a dog, leave your dog at home. You are entering the home of wild things. Our group had another rule: no music when paddling. Our guide told us about the rich environment created by the flooding and receding waters of the river. It is spring, and you can see where the water is near flooding over the banks. The water eventually rises and floods the lagoon area behind. Even the beavers help keep the lagoons with water, and it's a slow release over the summer. The wetlands absorb the water slowly, like a sponge, then gradually release it. And the slow receding of water leaves behind a rich, nourishing environment for nature's wildlife.
Okay.
Even the sound of the paddles in the water was music to my ears. But we were getting hungry, and at midday we stopped for a lunch. We were happy to get out of the canoes and stretch our legs. And a nice little lunch we did have. Our guide kept giving us more information about the mountain sheep.
Normally bighorn sheep come down in the winter. They have quite small hooves, and so they're not great in snow. And so they'll stay on the sun south and west slopes. The females move up because they're lambing, and so they want to get up away from predators. So they go up into the high country and they'll lamb up high.
After lunch, it was the final push to Radium Hot Springs. The river was nice and smooth all of the time, and the paddling was enjoyable. There's the bridge at Radium. We unloaded the canoes and pulled them onto the shore, lifted them up, and inexperienced hands, somebody had to hold the camera. We lifted it onto the trailer, and we were in the bus headed back for the starting point at Invermere. Well, that's about all she wrote, and we're rolling on down the trail. Come and join us. Hit the subscribe button, and that'll tell you when we're putting more videos on the internet. Until then, we're rolling on. This is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. If you want to see more videos, like it says at the bottom there, Google the little @ sign. Google at Don Barnett 5090. Hit the word playlists in the middle of the page. Scroll down, and several videos are found in every playlist.